I have been doing polyglot readings of the New Testament and also the Hebrew scriptures, the Hebrew and Septuagint in the Latin. Here in John 1 today, on this video, I would like to do a polyglot, that is, using the different languages, reading and grammar, along with commentary or brief comments of the Greek, the Latin, and the Hebrew. And what I would like to do is begin to prepare for Christmas, getting our hearts ready for the celebration of the birthday of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'd like to begin, though, with John 1. First of all, looking at the Hebrew, and I'm going to be dealing with the first 5 verses in this video. And basically, what I'd like to do again is to do a comparison of these different languages. The Greek, of course, because that's what the New Testament was written in. The Hebrew, because the apostles, including John, would have lived out of the Hebrew language. That was the language of the synagogue. It was the language of prayer. And even though Aramaic was spoken, it's my own feeling, and I would agree with Delitzsch here, who did a Hebrew, translation of the New Testament, Havrit Chadashah. So I would agree with him personally. Some believe that he should have done it in Aramaic. He took issue with that and gave some good evidence as to why he felt Hebrew would be more helpful than Aramaic in understanding the Hebrew background and the Hebrew roots of the New Testament Jewish apostles. So I begin, and we're looking forward now to Christmas. And so we begin with the eternality of the Lord Jesus Christ. It begins in John 1:1. En arche ein chalagas, kai chalagas ein pros tan theant, kai theas ein chalagas. That is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was toward God, and the Word was God. I think we can translate this: the Word was face to face with God. That is the Greek. Let me do the grammar of the Greek. In arche. In is a preposition taking the dative case. Arche is a feminine noun, first declension noun in the dative case. So in the beginning, ein is the imperfect indicative active, third masculine singular from eimi, the verb to be. So in the beginning was chalagas. Chalagas is the nominative masculine singular. Notice it's a second declension noun in Greek. Ha is the definite article of the nominative case, and logos is the noun in the nominative case. So in the beginning was the Word, kai halagos ein pros tan theant. And the Word, there we have the nominative again, was the indicative, imperfect indicative active of eimi, pros tan theant. Pros is the preposition meaning to or toward. So the Word was to or toward God. And I think we could render this face to face with God. That is, Jesus is not only eternal, but he's a distinct person within the Godhead, face to face with God. Kai theas ein halagos, and the Word was God. Notice the as here is in the nominative case, Again, we have the verb a me in the imperfect indicative active, third person singular, and halagos, the second declension noun, a nominative masculine singular. It is interesting, we have, when we look at this third clause, it's looking at the Word, which is Jesus, because the Word becomes flesh in verse 14. It's looking at the, can I say, the fact that he is fully God, that he has the full quality of deity. Whenever we have two nouns like this, separated by the verb to be, we're looking at the one as a predicate nominative. That is, theos is nominative, but it's predicating something about ha logos. Halagos is nominative, and it is the subject of this clause. So the word was God or was divine. We would never translate this, the word was a God, but the word had the full quality of divinity. An example is found in 1 John chapter 4, verse 11. Where it reads, "Ha theos agape estin," and God is love. That is, he has the full quality of love. And again, we have a predicate nominative in agape here, separated or with the verb to be. So we would never translate this, the word was a love, but the word is a love, but the word is love in its full nature and quality, meaning God, I should say God here. God is love in his full nature and quality. So, in the same way, we would never translate this clause, and the word was a God, but the word was fully divine, had the full quality of God. So that is the Greek. The Latin reads, in principio erat verbum, et verbum erat apud Deum, et Deus erat verbum. That is, in the beginning was the Word. Erat is the imperfect indicative active third person singular, and from the verb to be. In principio is in taking the dative case, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word et verbum erat apud Deum. The Word was with God. And here again, verbum is nominative, and apud is a preposition with God. And the Word was God. Et Deus erat verbum. The Word was God. Again, the verb erat, the imperfect indicative active third person singular all the way through here of the verb to be. It is interesting when we look at the Hebrew, and I'm going to read all of these very slowly so anyone can follow along. Bereshit haya ha-davar. V'hadavar haya etzel ha-Elohim. Ve'Elohim haya ha-davar. That is, in the beginning was the Word, davar, and the Word was beside God, etzer. And the Hebrew translated cross as etzel, beside God. Ve'Elohim haya ha-davar. And the Word was God. That is one of the translations in the Hebrew. And just hearing how the Hebrew reads would help us to think about how John would have been reflecting on all of this. It is interesting that in the Delitzsch's translation, it reads, Bereshit haya ha-davar, V'hadavar haya et ha-Elohim, ve'Elohim haya hadavar. And he did not have Eitzel beside, but eight, et or eight, and eight. We really can render that, and the word was with God. Eight can have the idea of being with, being in company with. So again, the Hebrew follows in the Latin very closely to the Greek. We then come to verse 2, and reading the Greek of verse 2, it reads, Hutas ein inarche prastan theon. This one was in the beginning prastan theon, toward God, or face to face with God. Same expression, and hutas is a demonstrative pronoun, nominative masculine singular. So this one and no one else was in the beginning face to face with God. Our mind goes back to Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1. Bereshit bara Elohim, et ha-shemayim v'et ha'aretz. That is, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Vayomer Elohim, and God said. And so we have God speaking. And I think the word davar here in the Hebrew rendition captures that idea, and the word logos. Now, some will say, and I think it's a very interesting point, that the Aramaic word memra, memra, is also used in the Targum, in the reading of the Aramaic Targums. These were Aramaic translations of the Hebrew that were oral and then later were put into written form. And for example, if we're reading the text in one of the Aramaic Targums, it would read like this. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the Memra said. And the Memra, memra, is being used interchangeably for God. So again, that is another interesting thought as to where John got the word memra. I think it was clearly from Genesis in my own thinking, not necessarily from the Greek world, although some want to say that he was borrowing from that world too. But I think he's going back personally to Genesis chapter 1, showing that no one else was in the beginning except Jesus. He was there eternally with the Father. The Latin then reads, Hoc erat in principio apud Deum. This one was in the beginning with God. Again, we have the demonstrative pronoun hoc erat, this one, and the same grammar in taking the dative case with God. So this one was in the beginning with God. Now, let me just read the Hebrew. Hu haya bereshit etzel ha-Elohim. He was in the beginning beside God, or with God. That is one Hebrew translation. Haya would be your cow perfect third masculine singular from the root haya. Again, Delitzsch agrees with that. He wrote, "Who same way, Hu haya bereshit et ha Elohim." That is, this one was in the beginning et ha Elohim. Eitzel is the only difference in the two Hebrew translations. Eitzel meaning beside, and et can be translated he was in the beginning with God, can be translated as with. So then we move on to verse 3, and it's very exciting to me to see that Jesus was there in the very beginning with God. He is eternal. He's a distinct person in the Holy Trinity, and he is fully divine. And it was this one that was face to face with God from the beginning, or all eternity. Then we move to verse 3. And verse 3 in the Greek reads, Panta diautu agenata, kai korisautu agenata udechen ha geganin. All things through him came to be, and without him came to be not one thing which has come to be. Notice panta is the neuter nominative plural from pas. So all things through him. Dia is the preposition through, and the alpha has elided because it's followed by the other alpha or the next in autu. So we have the elision of the alpha in dia, and dia takes the genitive case. So all things through him. Notice again, autu is genitive singular, autas, autu, and so forth. All things through him, agenita, came to be. Agenita is the aorist indicative middle, third person singular from genomai. So all things came to be. We have a singular, but it's taking collectively all things in that singular, third person singular. So all things through him came to be. Kai, and without, korisautu agenita udechen. And without him came to be not even one thing which has come to be. Notice kai korisautu. Koris takes the genitive in autu. Without him, again, agenita, aorist indicative middle, third person singular from genomai. Without him came to be not even one thing. Hen, which is the hes, meaning it comes from hes, meaning one, and then hen is your neuter. So came to be, and not even one thing, a neuter accusative singular, of which ha, here's the neuter relative pronoun, which geganin has come to be. Geganin is from genomai. It's the perfect indicative active, third person singular from genomai. So all things through him came to be, and without him came to be not even one thing which has come to be. That is, Jesus is the source of everything, which to me is a wonderful thought, to think about how vast the universe is, how vast the world is, and how Jesus is the agent of all of that. The Latin reads, Omnia per ipsum facta sunt, kai sine ipso factum est nihil quod factum est. All things by him have come to be, or have been, have come to be, have become a fact. Facta, sunt facta, I'm understanding, used together here as a perfect passive participle. All things by him are come to be, and without him is come to be, or has come to be, factum est, nothing, quod factum est, which has come to be. Again, a passive participle, a perfect passive participle with the construction factum est, which is agreeing, in my understanding of the grammar here in Latin, with ha geganin, a perfect uh, indicative passive from ginomai. So not one thing which a perfect which has come to be, a perfect indicative, I should say, from ginomai, active from ginomai, all things which have come to be. It's a perfect active from ginomai. So when we look at the Hebrew reads, Hakol niya al yado, u'mivaladav lo niya kol asher niya. That is, all things have been made, or have come to be by his hand, or have been brought into being, we could say, by his hand, and without him, nothing nothing which has come to be has come to be. I'm understanding these as nifal forms, perfect third masculine singular from haya. So everything that he has done that has come to be by his hand, al yado, and without him, not one thing. Lo niya kol asher niya. The both Delitzsch and the other translation I'm using read the same way. So again, very close to the Greek. Then we go to verse 4. It reads, In auto zoe ein. Kache zoe ein tafos ton anthropon. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Notice in auto, in takes the dative case, in auto, in him life was. Zoe is your first declension noun, nominative, feminine singular. In him life was. Again, ein is your imperfect indicative active third person singular from ami. And the life was taphos. I think of photograph. The life was the light of men. Notice tone, anthropon. Tone is the definite article genitive plural with anthropon genitive plural from anthropos. So he's the source of life, and that life was the truth. I'm understanding light here to be the truth of men, or for men. It's interesting in the Hebrew of Genesis 1, Yehi or, Vayehi or, let there be light, and there was light. And so in him is that phos, that light, and that light is the truth for humankind. And then in verse 4, in ipso vita erit, in him was life, et vita erit lux hominum, and the life was the light of men. Again, notice in him, here we have the dative, was life, erit, your imperfect indicative active third person singular from ire, in him was life, and the life was lux hominum, the light of men. Here we have a genitive plural and hominum. So that life brings life to men, and it is the truth that brings that life. So in him was life, and that life was the truth for all humankind. This will be a theme that John will develop throughout his gospel. Jesus will say, I am the light of the world. And over, we'll see that light is related to Jesus. And then the Hebrew reads, going to the Hebrew of verse 4, Bo Chayim. In him was Chayim, life. V'hachayim hayu ha'or, and the life was the light of, and the life was the light livnei ha'adam, to men, or to the sons of men. B'nai is a plural noun in construct with ha'adam. So in him, hayu chayim was life, v'hachayim hayu ha'or, livnei ha'adam. And the life was the light of men. And I noticed Dalich has the same. In him, bo hayu. There we have hayu's life, and here we have hayu, same rendering, and then we have the hayu or livnei ha'adam, and it agrees with the other reading that we have given. V'hachayim hayu ha'or livnei ha'adam. So now we come to the next verse, and it's interesting here. Hayim, life, is found in Jesus Christ. Jesus will say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Greek zoe, Hebrew chayim. Then we move to verse 5. And this will be the last verse that I'll deal with in this particular video. And notice it reads, Kaitafos in te skatia fine, kai skatia alta u katelavin. And the light in the darkness keeps on shining. Fine. And darkness did not katelavin. And we'll talk about that word. It can mean did not comprehend it or did not take it down. So as we look at verse 5, the conjunction kai, tafos, here we have a third declension, a noun, a nominative, and it's neuter, tafos, and the light in the darkness, in te skatia. Notice in takes the dative case here, or the locative, but probably dative, in the darkness, fine. Fine is the present indicative active third person singular from fino. So it's looking at the light continues to shine in the darkness. The darkness could not then destroy it. And I think he's looking, no doubt, at the conquering of Christ over death in the resurrection. And as John's writing, he's showing how the light continues to shine even in the midst of the darkness. And then the last phrase, kai heskatia alta u katelavit. In the darkness, it did not either comprehend, it did not comprehend it, or it did not overcome it. And this is interesting here. Katalambano is the root. And katalambano can have a double meaning. It can mean to understand, katalambano, and it can also mean to overtake. And I think really here it has both meanings. John was fond of double entendre, that is double intention, or double understanding. And I think we see two meanings here. The darkness did not comprehend it, nor did it overcome it. And I thought it was very interesting that when I was doing a comparison of the Latin with the Hebrew, the Latin brought out one idea and the Hebrew translation the other. The Latin reads, et lux in tenebris lucet, and the light in the darkness shines. Lucet is your present indicative active third person singular, from lucere, to shine. Now, notice the next phrase, kai tenebrai, literally, and the darkness says, plural. The darknesses, feminine nominative plural. It non comprehenderon. And the darknesses, they did not comprehend it. And notice comprehenderon, they have not comprehended it, is the perfect indicative active third person plural from comprehendere. And so their understanding in Jerome's translation, it seems to me, that it's comprehension. That is, and it's interesting to me, he took the singular darkness and it's plural, and the darknesses did not, they did not comprehend it, any of the darknesses of this world. It seems would be Jerome's idea here. But what is interesting to me, that is a possible meaning of katelaven, where the darkness singular did not comprehend it. But in the Hebrew, it's very interesting. In the Hebrew translation, it reads, Ha'or me'ir b'choshek, b'choshek lo hisigo. That is, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overtake it. And here we have a divergency from the Latin, where it says they did not comprehend it. And I thought that was interesting that one translation understood one aspect of the katalambano, and the other translation took it the other way as overcoming. So it's interesting how or, here we have the definite article followed by the noun or, the light, me'ir, the light shines or is caused to shine. I'm understanding this as a hifil participle, masculine singular. The light shines in darkness or in the darkness. But hachoshek, in the darkness, lo hisigo, did not overtake it. And this is a hifil, did not cause it to be overtaken, from nasak. And what has happened here, we have an assimilation where the noon of the root, the pay noon root, nasak, hin sigo, the noon has assimilated into the scene here by progressive assimilation. So hin sigo became hisigo, so the darkness did not overcome it, and the O here is your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So I thought that was interesting as I did a comparison of the two. The Delitzsch has an interesting way of rendering it. V'ha'or, he'or, and the darkness was caused to shine. He took it as a hifil perfect third masculine singular, was caused to shine in the darkness, but hachoshek lo hisigo, and the darkness did not overtake it. So the rest reads the same. The only difference was the hifil perfect in Delitzsch versus the hifil participle in the other translation that I'm reading from. So this is an interesting point that about elevan, that is, or katelevan, to overtake. People often ask me, why is Greek and Hebrew so important? And to me, this is a classic example. That is, katelevan has two possible meanings. It can mean, first of all, to comprehend, or it can mean to overtake. And it's interesting to me, you have to know that to understand the double meaning and what John is doing. I think what he's saying is the light keeps on shining in the darkness of men's hearts, or the hearts of humankind, did not comprehend it or understand it. On the other hand, it can have the meaning of overcome. That is, the light keeps on shining. There's your present tense. It keeps on shining. And the darkness did not overcome it or defeat it. And again, I think John is going to build on that theme, looking at the glorious resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that light does continue to shine today in the midst of the darkness. And the darkness did not overcome it, nor does it comprehend it. I'm reminded of a great Christmas carol that I'd like to conclude with by Charles Wesley. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. We'll be getting to the birth of Jesus later on, and how the Word became flesh in verse 14. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful, all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With the angels' host proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. And then verse 2, I like verse 2. Christ by highest heaven adored. Christ, the everlasting Lord. And I took that phrase, everlasting Lord. In him, Bereshit, in the beginning, was Hayah Hadabar, or in the Greek, Enorke Ein Halagas. In other words, Jesus is eternal. Christ, the everlasting Lord. Late in time, behold him come, offspring of the Virgin's womb. And we'll get into Matthew later in Isaiah 7, 14. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see. Hail the incarnate deity. So Jesus, we're told in John 1, fully God. And the Word is or was divine or God. Pleased as men with men to dwell. Christ, our Emmanuel. That is, Christ who is fully God with us. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King.